Hey, are you looking for a fresh angle for your next research paper? Or maybe you're just trying to make sense of this kind of anxious, polarized world we're all living in. Well, you are in the right place. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a really powerful tool for understanding the pressure cooker we all seem to be in. So let's just dive right in with this quote from Dr. LorenzoNeal. He's basically saying that all the constant arguments we see, over justice and identity and belonging, they aren't just political disagreements. He sees them as a symptom of something way deeper, a society that is seriously struggling to manage its collective anxiety, and it's starting to crack under the stress.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? How do we actually analyze this anxiety? How can you, as a researcher, or really just as a person, get a handle on it without getting totally swept away yourself?
Now, what's so fascinating about this is where the answer comes from. The framework we're about to use, it doesn't come from political science or sociology. Nope, it comes from the world of psychology, specifically from something called Bowen Family Systems Theory. It's a tool that was designed to understand families, but as you're about to see, it scales up perfectly. Okay. So the name of this psychological lens is differentiation of self. It's a pretty powerful concept that helps explain our ability to be resilient and think clearly, not just in our families, but in our communities, and yeah, even on a national level. So what is it exactly? Well, you can think of differentiation as this fundamental balancing act. It's your ability to stay connected to a group, to be part of something bigger than yourself without losing your own sense of self in the process. It's all about navigating that constant pull between wanting to belong and needing to be your own person. And the theory gives us 4 key dynamics to look for. So on one end, you've got these less productive responses, like emotional reactivity, that's just that knee-jerk, impulsive reaction to stress, and emotional cutoff, which is when we just bail and withdraw from any conflict. Then there's fusion, where we get so lost in groupthink we kind of lose ourselves. But the goal, the sweet spot, is what's called the I position. That's the ability to hold your ground with principle, even when things get really, really heated. Okay, so theory is great, but how does this actually work in the real world? To see just how powerful this framework can be, let's apply it to one of the most anxious and high-pressure periods in American history, the Civil Rights Movement. Dr. Neal makes this incredible point, that the movement's strength didn't come from just raw anger. That would be pure emotional reactivity. Instead, it came from what he calls regulated courage. Leaders took these intense emotions and channeled them into disciplined, nonviolent action. That is a masterful example of a group maintaining a really high level of differentiation under the most extreme pressure you can imagine. This table just brings the whole contrast into sharp focus. Look on the left, you see the Civil Rights Movement. Emotional reactivity was disciplined, it was regulated. They actively resisted infusion, or that mob mentality, by grounding themselves in these deep moral principles. Their I position was crystal clear, even when it was incredibly costly and dangerous. Now, look at the column for today. It's a pretty stark difference, right? We're often defined by high, media-fueled reactivity and intense polarization that basically encourages us to fuse with our groups. So here's a really crucial point. We can't oversimplify this. While nonviolence was, for sure, a powerful and highly differentiated I position, it wasn't the only one. When the system completely failed to protect its citizens, other principled stances started to emerge. Just take a look at this powerful image. It's by Emory Douglas for the Black Panther newspaper. The quote reads, "Until the day of liberation, protection for my child can only be guaranteed through the barrel of the gun." This represents a different, but an equally clear and principled I position, armed self-reliance. It was a direct response to a corrupt legal system that wouldn't protect Black communities. It's a huge reminder that a differentiated stance is about the clarity of your principle, not just one specific tactic. All right, so now let's zoom in a bit. From the level of a national movement down to the dynamics within a group and even inside ourselves. How does this whole idea of differentiation help us understand resilience and identity today? Okay, now check out this statistic from a recent study. It's wild. When researchers asked Black Americans to reflect on their group's history, a staggering 81% focused their stories on resilience, on strength, on overcoming adversity, way more than narratives that focused only on victimhood. So what does this tell us? Well, the research suggests that this collective memory of resilience, of a group holding its I position for generations, is a vital resource. It's like an inherited strength that fuels the movements for social change that we see today. It's a really powerful example of how a group can maintain its sense of self and its principles over a very long time. And this framework works on the most personal level too. This quote from social worker Sydney Reed,
It really shows the process of personal differentiation. It's about that hard self-reflection, about looking at our own emotional reactivity and biases without getting defensive. It's that difficult, humbling work of developing a more solid, principled self.
And here's what that looks like for an individual. On one side, you have a poorly differentiated person, someone whose sense of self is totally dependent on other people. They might act like a chameleon or even a bully. But on the other side, that's the goal, a well-differentiated person. They've got an internal compass. It lets them stand firm in their principles and act thoughtfully, not just reactively. And honestly, that's the kind of resilience we should be aiming for in ourselves and in our leaders.
So now it's your turn. We've basically just handed you a powerful analytical tool. I want you to start thinking of differentiation as this new lens that you can apply to your own research and generate some truly fresh, new insights.
And you can apply this framework to almost anything. Seriously, how does fusion explain what happens in online political echo chambers? What does a corporate leader's eye position look like during a huge PR crisis? Could you analyze campus free speech debates as a struggle for differentiation? Heck, you could even use this to analyze characters in a novel you're reading for class. The possibilities here are truly endless.
See, at the end of the day, a good framework, it doesn't give you the answers. It gives you better questions. So the real takeaway is this. What complex issue, in your studies or just in your life, will you start to see in a whole new light now that you have this concept of differentiation? Go find out.